Hi, welcome back to the Gemhawks YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining me once again. Today I want to show you a staple of both craft and jewellery wire workers, which is the Tree of Life design. Now there are so many different ways that you can enhance this and make it your own. You can add your full moon in between the leaves, you can add fruit, you can add people, characters, animals, all sorts of things. But I would just want today to show you the absolute basics of your Tree of Life design, which is a wire work frame enhanced with a finer wire in the centre, and you can make them without any gemstones at all. So you have your winter tree, skeleton tree that has no foliage, or you can add some gemstones. I have recently been working with Russian chrome dioxide, which is the most perfect springtime Tree of Life gem, and I will show you examples at the end of the video of how you can take this just a little few steps further. So the materials we're working with today could be any chip gemstone beads or any round beads, it's entirely up to you. And the wires, you could use 1.25mm gauge or 1mm gauge for your framework. You could even size that down to 0.8 if you're going to use it for ear wires, and I'll show you examples of making earrings with the Tree of Life at the end of the video. And then to create the tree itself, you'll be looking to use a 0.4mm gauge wire. Today I'm working with rose gold colour copper core wire. So first thing we need to do is to create a frame, and I want to show you just a couple of examples of frames that I commonly use. Now this has been created using a perfume bottle, and this just a standard round form, and I'm going to show you the basics of this, but you will be able to finish off with coils and wrapped loops at the top. So I have a length here of your 1mm gauge wire, and I'm just going to use my art clay pot to create a round form with the wires crossing over at the top. This is probably around about 12 or 14 inches of the 1mm gauge wire, and I'm just going to make sure that I'm happy with that round form before removing the pot out of the way. So I want the wires to cross approximately the same distance at the top, and I'm going to grab one of those and create an upright bend. And just give that a bit of a straighten out, and this one you will use to create a hanging loop or a bail, dependent on whether you're using it as wall art or jewellery. Just going to flip the design over, and I'm going to support the second wire while I just create a loop to cross around the upright we just created. I'm going to grip that quite firmly whilst I take the tail all the way around. Now I have just shared a video last week about creating leafy designs, which shows you how to create necks with a coil over the top, and you also have our wrapped loop dedicated video on this channel which you can refer to. But what we would then do is just wrap the tail of wire all the way around several times to create a nice smooth coil of wire like so, before finishing with a wrapped loop at the top. In the instance I have here, the round form, I chose to take a long neck line of wire, a long coil up to the top, and then with the two pieces of wire I had left over from the neck and from the loop, I turned them both upwards to create a matching symmetrical, could be worn either way or could be displayed either way, design. And with the square design, which I used a perfume bottle to create, I kept the loops on the same side, the coils rather, and just had them going in opposite directions. So it's really horses for courses how you work with your frame once you've created it. I'm working with 1mm gauge wire, but you can take that up if you want to create a really large piece to hang on the wall. I know my mum has got a really large Tree of Life in her van which she uses to travel, and it's got family birthstones within the branches of the trees, which is quite lovely, so that's another design that you can use. So the next thing that I'm going to use, I think I'll use the round form today, is I'm going to show you with a minimum of 5 lengths of wire, which is going to create 10 branches. Now these lengths of wire are at least 4 times the distance of the form itself. So if we measure, that's 1, 2, 3 and 4, with a little bit left over. The reason you will need such a larger amount of wire is that we're going to be working with halves of the wire, and I'll show you how that works in a second. Plus we're going to be twisting the wire around quite a lot, and it gives you flexibility to add quite a little bit of drama to your tree design. So I have my 5 lengths of wire, which are 4 times minimum the dimension across your frame that you're going to use, and I want those to sit side by side so that they're smooth like a series of tram lines, and I'm going to find that centre point. I'm then going to take my design and find what would be the 6 o'clock position on the design and lay that tramline section over the centre 6 o'clock position and bend that up and around and draw it all the way around as smoothly as possible a couple of times. I think I'm just going to leave it like so, and I'm going to draw everything so that it comes away from that 6 o'clock position. Sorry about the scratching noises there. So to begin with, I just want to start by drawing these sections together to create the trunk of the tree. So I'm going to cross one under the other, one over the top, and to begin with, just almost braid them. Once you get going, you can just start twisting. Now, you do need a fairly good thumb grip, but what you can also do is take a hold of that with some pliers and start twisting. And you can see that's beginning to form rope. Now, I'm very, very carefully holding the central section, and I'm not pressing down on either end. If you pull too hard at this end, you can deform the 6 o'clock position on that framework wire, and you can also take the surface, if you're working with coloured wire, you can abrade that and it makes it difficult to cover up a bit later. So we're gentle at this end, and we put most of our oomph or gusto effort of twisting into the central section. We'll twist a little bit more by hand, like so, until we get a good trunk. And if it starts to go a little bit awry, it's not important at this stage. We're just going to twist a little bit more, so we're getting closer to the top, but we're very careful about pressing those wires when they start crossing over individually. So another way that you can do this is to put all the wires flat down side by side, grip hold of that flat segment and twist. You do need to be very, very careful when you're working with wires like this that you don't press too hard. If you can press a single wire on top of another single wire, or in this instance there are now 10 wires travelling together, we don't want to actually work harden that by causing sort of fractures within that copper. So we just need to be creating tension rather than crushing. So we're gripping hold of that bundle of wires and we're twisting, and any power is coming from the twist, not from the grip, if you follow the logic. So back down to the board, I'm going to continue moving along the line a little bit further, and I'm just going to spin that up to see what it looks like so far. Now, in my trees, I like to have a little bit of drama, so I'm just going to start adding some bends, and then I think I might twist a little bit more by hand at the top to begin with, and then twist again to create further length in that trunk. So I'm going to again put a little bit more bending and growth. Imagine, if you will, a tree that's lived by the seaside. It's been pushed and pulled around a little bit, so it's got a little bit of drama in its life, as we all do. So I'm just going to sit that back up inside the frame. I like how that's looking. You can have it centralised if you want to. You can have a perfectly straight one if you want to. What we're going to do now is start generating little branches and little bundles that will come off bit by bit. So there's a number of ways you can do this. You can grab maybe 2 or 3 little sections and just twist those a little bit out to one side, like so. Again, you can, if you're cautious, just grab hold of that with the pliers rather, to generate a bit of a twist, like so. And you can see that you've started to have a little bit of a branch over on one side, which I again would try to put some reality into, and then I would continue working on the remainder of the branches or twigs, wherever we're getting to, all the way along. Now I think that I'm going to have quite a long expanse of trunk work here. Pull that along, add a little bit more shaping to it, and then I might draw some wires out onto the right hand side, and this time I think I'll go for another 3, like so, and just start twisting those wires very, very carefully so that you're generating a branch, as it were, like so, over to the right hand of your frame before those can start separating out. And that leaves us with 4 branches or 4 strands of wire heading away to the top of the design. I'm just going to continue with the trunk and then separate into maybe 2 and 2. Now you can do this however you want to. You can have 2 branches coming off either side all the way along. It's entirely up to you. Every tree is different, and that is one of the absolute joys of the Tree of Life design. So you can see that the tree is starting to take its form, and there are as many different ways that you can work this design as there are trees on the planet. So you can really play around with how this looks. You can make it a very witchy tree, you can make it an ancient tree, you can work with many, many more strands and make it a really thick, bushy tree. What I'm going to do next is show you how to add on just to one of those branches leaves or foliage in the form of some random gemstones from my gem jar. So I'm going to come back down to the board, and I'm just going to start by finding some relatively small gems to begin with. I'm just going to pick a branch near the top and start sliding a few on. Looks like a lovely little white topaz just there. Let's see what else we've got that's relatively small. Okay. Not entirely sure what this chip bead is. So let's go with this lovely tanzanite. Pop that on. Obviously, the smaller the bead, the smaller the hole. I think we're all aware that I can't actually see, so there we go. That one goes on next. We'll have a tiger's eye cuboid bead next. A little hematite barrel bead. Let's see what else we've got. Oh, that's pretty. A nice little blue opal. A little bit of green aventurine there. Nice bit of white moonstone. Now I've put far too many on, but that gives me the opportunity to bend that branch around and just take that to the edge, like so. Now if that was too many for you and you wanted a slightly straighter branch, you could just take one off and draw that up to true. Now I happen to prefer making Tree of Life designs with chip beads because it gives a more full feeling. What happens is the chip beads will nestle one and over each other, looking much more like a natural foliage on a deciduous tree. So obviously you can play around with what sort of beads you want to use. You can also do this with seed beads. There's all sorts of different ways that you can enhance a Tree of Life design to make it completely unique to you. So I'm just going to show you how to take that branch to the edge of your framework, and then I'm going to show you some examples of what the Tree of Life design can look like. It really is a simple yet very, very pleasing design to work with, and all we're going to do to end off with is just to take that end wire tail all the way around the edge. And I'm going to go for 5 times. Now what you could do if you wanted to is put a fancy coil on the end. You could trim away just like so, or you could take maybe a 12mm end. And this looks really, really pretty. It's just an option instead of ending on a plain segment. Coiling your 0.4mm gauge wire isn't the easiest job in the world. But once you've got that first circle going, you can start working on a coil and draw that around. And then you can just sit this coil on the outside circle of the design, and it's just an alternative to a neat ending. So I'm just going to show you a couple of examples now of what the Tree of Life can look like once you have added your gemstones. First of all, I'm going to show you random chip bead design, and this is in a silver plated copper, and these are just all sorts of random gems that have come out of the pot. There are a couple of round and cuboid ones, but mostly they are those lovely chip beads with plenty of beautiful green peridot, which is another perfect gemstone for this design. So you can see I took a lot of tension into the branches and the lower trunk work on this design to give it a twisted appearance, as if it was a beautiful old Japanese cherry blossom in the springtime. So with this design I added on some zigzag work and just wired that around the outside. So that's one alternative that you can use for your Tree of Life. Another one is to take it down much smaller and create matched earrings. Now these are Russian chrome diopside, and this is in a gold colour wire, and these are going on my New Monday store. If they have taken your fancy, you can purchase these through New Monday. But I think you'll see how the depth of a chip bead really works to your advantage, especially when the light catches like so, because you've got all those different surfaces. I mean, it does work beautifully again with a faceted gemstone. Microfacets especially looks absolutely splendid, but my preference would be for chip beads. Last example I'm going to show you is how you can make wall art really, really uniquely and interestingly. So this is a piece again is with Russian chrome dioxide. I have used my square framework as a basis for this. The exact same technique that we've just learnt to create a basic tree design. And then I've added on a kite, which I will show you in the next demonstration, a little flower, which I'll also show you, and the sunray coil, which is a variation on the pendant that I showed you a couple of weeks ago. So that is your basic introduction to Tree of Life design. As I say, there are so many different ways that you can enhance that and make it your own. I hope you've enjoyed the demo. Thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you so much. Bye for now.